Welcome to Charting Toward Intimacy,
where we're expanding the conversation around Catholic sexuality.
I'm Ellen.
And I'm Kathleen.
Welcome to the show. Welcome back to another Charting Toward Intimacy episode. I'm Ellen.
I'm Kathleen.
And today we are going to talk about overcoming pain. We're going to kind of just be talking about our own stories with our issue, like various encounters with pain, with sex,
experiences.
Experiences. That's the word I was looking for.
Experiences.
This is why you're here. This is why I don't do a podcast by myself.
This is it. That's all I'm here for.
That's it. But first, let's answer a listener question.
Woohoo!
So we have a open question box. You can submit questions. We're going to be answering one listener question every episode. And then at the end of the month, I'm going to take all of the questions that were submitted, because obviously we won't get to all of them. We're just answering one a week. At the end of the month, I'm going to take all of those questions that were submitted and record a Q&A video. And that's going to be available in the exclusive Charting Toward Intimacy community. You can join that for $5 a month. So if you want in on that, in the community, you also get lots of other fun stuff. Full videos of the episodes and other great things. So
yes,
let's jump into the question. The question that we have for this week is, how effective is NFP with PCOS? Ooh. This is a great question. I feel like I see this question all the time. So I'm so happy to answer it because I'd love to answer it for you. So with NFP, with the modern methods of fertility awareness, the ones that we really tout. So I'm talking about Billings, Creighton, Femme, Marquette, Boston Crosscheck, Symptothermal. Am I missing any? I got to 7. I think 7 is my number.
Those are the big ones.
Those are the big ones.
For sure.
What we're doing is we are tracking real-time biomarkers. What PCOS is doing is that it's really going to kind of mess with your cycle. You're going to have long cycles. You're going to have short cycles. You're going to have kind of these patches of fertility. But if you are tracking real-time biomarkers, and particularly the cervical mucus is going to be really important for PCOS, which most of the methods either track it or have an option to track it. Mm-hmm. You're going to remain at that high efficacy level. Now, sometimes with PCOS, you might have longer periods of abstinence, especially in the learning phase. A lot of times what I recommend for PCOS is the mucus only methods, because they've got a little bit different rules when it comes to kind of those longer cycles versus something like a Marquette or a Symptothermal. I think a lot of times you'd end up with a really long abstinence periods. Anything else you want to add, Kathleen?
No, I think that's about right. Like, when you do have PCOS, you're probably experiencing more mucus than typical, right? You might even have constant mucus. So it's really all about developing what's called your BIP, which is your basic infertile pattern. Mm-hmm. And seeing the differences in those in that mucus. So it is not ineffective. It'll be different, and you'll have to be kind of more diligent than someone with a pretty typical cycle. But it's not impossible and it's not ineffective. It's just all about learning. And that's the case for anybody, right? Regardless of PCOS diagnosis or not, it's about learning your particular patterns, your particular body, and figuring out how to read that and interpret it.
Absolutely. And working closely with your instructor. That's a big thing.
Yes,
like don't just learn it online.
Yes. Find someone who's available, for those questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for submitting that question to the listener who submitted it. That's awesome. Okay. Pain. Overcoming pain. We're not just going to talk about pain.
Can I tell you what's in my head? The image that I have in my head right now is the image of Pain from the Disney Hercules movie. Do you know what I mean? There's Pain and Panic, the two, like, these two minions.
Oh my gosh, it's been forever since I've seen that movie. But yeah, they're like
the little red guy, the little red like demon guy. Yeah. But he's funny. He's not like, he's funny.
Yeah.
He's what's going on in my head right now as we say pain.
That's hilarious. Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Anyway, total aside.
Okay, so what I think we need to start off with is talking a little bit about the difference between pain and discomfort. Because something that is very common when you first start having sex is discomfort, because this is a new thing.
Right.
You've never had something going into your vaginal canal, right? It is, it's going to be very different. And so something that's really important, if you feel like you are experiencing pain, is two big things first before you kind of like jump onto the, oh my gosh, I have pain with sex train, is adequate lubrication and adequate foreplay. Both of those are really, really necessary.
Right.
And with lubrication, and we were talking about this before we recorded, like, just make sure it's a lube that works well for you. Like if you start trying it out and, 10 minutes in, like it's, I don't know, you're feeling discomfort again or something like that.
Yeah.
If it's a water-based lube, you need to reapply lube multiple times, because the water, your body is going to absorb the water, especially if you're dehydrated. Your body's really going to absorb that water fast and become sticky tacky. And then actually can cause more discomfort.
Yes, that's very true. Very true.
Oil, I'm on the oil train over here. My recommendation is sweet almond oil. I will put a link in the show notes because I'm going to tout almond oil till the cows come home. You need just like a little bit of it. You don't need to reapply. And like it'll just like eventually it'll like soak into your body like a massage oil would, which is great. Sweet almond oil, as opposed to other oils, is really close to the pH balance of your vagina, which is really good. And yeah, I mean, that's the big things.
Does it smell nice?
It doesn't smell like anything.
Oh, okay. I imagined it having like a slight almondy scent, which would be lovely.
I don't think it smells like anything, really.
Okay.
Don't do coconut oil. Please don't use coconut oil. It has a very high sugar content and it can cause, what are those things that it can cause? Yeast infections.
Yeast infections, yeah.
And that's not fun.
No, they're not.
I've actually never had
experience.
One. So
I only get them when I'm pregnant.
Ooh.
But yeah, they're not fun.
Yeah. So anyway, that's our thing with oil. And the thing with oil too is you can leave it on your nightstand and people just assume massage oil. And there's no concern of somebody walking in your room.
For any strangers walking in your bedroom.
Yeah. They're just like, they just like do massages. That's great. That's wonderful, right? It's the way to go.
Oh, gosh,
but anyway,
so funny.
So discomfort, especially when you're like beginning having sex for the first time, when you're newly married, that is normal and typically can be mitigated through, adequate foreplay and adequate lubrication.
And also time.
Yes.
Don't underestimate the fact that it's going to take a little time for you to get used to it. I'll say for me, that was really the only time that I've experienced what I would call, somewhat significant pain, but it was more just discomfort. It wasn't like there was something wrong. It was just that, this was a totally new thing. And I would say for me, it took about 2 weeks to start feeling more comfortable.
Sure. Yeah. What Kathleen means by time is not necessarily like 6 months until, you don't have pain.
Exactly.
Like just, a couple of times getting to know what that feeling is.
Exactly. But I do remember it being so bad that I actually said to my husband, I don't understand how this is ever supposed to be pleasurable. Which is probably so romantic, and he really loved hearing that.
Your husband your new husband on your honeymoon. You're like, yeah, sorry sorry, dude, I don't see how
like,
this could be
I mean,
good at
listen,
all.
I'll still keep going. It's fine. Like, but I just don't get it right now. I don't get it at all. Anyway, so kind of hilarious. But yeah, so it's time, especially if you're new to this, if you're just starting out, just give it a little time, a couple weeks, a couple times, and don't stress about it yet.
Yes. Now, pain is a totally different story. There are two kind of categories of pain that fall into it's like genetopelvo pain disorder or something is like the technical title of it. But the two kind of categories that fall under there are vaginismus and dyspareunia. Vaginismus is pain upon penetration, upon entrance into the vaginal canal. Dyspareunia, I don't know how to pronounce it, honestly. Is like
pretty good effort,
right? I'm trying. Is like a deeper pain. Typically dyspareunia is actually a pain discomfort with the penis bumping up against the cervix. That's like most often where dyspareunia comes from, unless you have something like endometriosis, which can also cause pain, but for a different reason.
Right.
And so, so that's kind of the two like classes of pain. So vaginismus, can either be like acute pain upon penetration, that continues until penetration ends. It can be like an acute pain that kind of like is just upon the entrance and then kind of goes away. Or it can be so bad that penetration is impossible because the pain level is so high. Basically what's happening is that vaginal canal entrance is really, really tight. And relaxation is necessary. So with like kind of the vaginismus has a spectrum. So with kind of lesser cases of vaginismus, typically it just takes adequate foreplay, like an adequate foreplay, meaning maybe an hour, a lot of blood flow to the vulva area to allow it to relax and open, because that's what we need. We need it to open. More, higher on the spectrum, that's gonna, it's a twofold. Vaginismus is kind of a twofold disorder, in that it can require both pelvic floor therapy and like self-work therapy, like or just like self-work, maybe not therapy itself. So it's something that kind of it's vaginismus a lot of times kind of comes from the purity culture issues that we have, and just kind of this like overall disdain of sex and like, oh, it's bad, it's dirty, it's something I shouldn't do. And the body, like what your brain says informs your body, right? And so your body is like, oh, I should not do this. I should not have sex. Like, so that's a little bit, that's vaginismus a little bit. This is part of my story is vaginismus. I had it to such an acute level, that penetration wasn't possible for, I think, about the first 6 months or so. So that was great.
Yeah.
Difficult, very
That's
difficult.
Intense.
And it required, for me, the mind work was really important in just getting to know, understanding, what does the church actually teach, the goodness and the holiness of sex. Some books, like the book Holy Sex, helped a lot, and particularly because it encourages conversation between you and your spouse, and those conversations are really what started to get the ball rolling. I still had pain with sex through my first pregnancy. And it was, so what happens sometimes in vaginismus cases, there are small studies. It's a hard thing to study because you have to find the right kind of people and you have to study them before and after pregnancy. But there are small studies that vaginal birth actually can loosen the pelvic floor enough that you don't need to do dilation work. So I was kind of lucky enough to experience that. Now, what I should have really done was I should have done pelvic floor physical therapy before that first pregnancy. But I still didn't really know what was going on until honestly after I gave birth to my first child and I started learning more about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I had vaginismus and now it's gone.
Right. Amazing.
Wow.
That's so funny.
So don't go that route.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Not recommended.
Not recommended. But I mean, it was helpful for me. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so sometimes what vaginismus takes is dilation work, which means that you're going to get, a pelvic floor physical therapist will give you a set of dilators. What's important to know about dilators and like you'll get this set of dilators and then what you need to do is take the dilators when your husband's penis is fully erect and find the one that is that size. And you do not need to go higher than that size. Dilator sets have really big ones. You do not need one that is bigger than your husband's penis. You don't. Like that's just
makes
extra
sense.
Work. Like
makes sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So anyway,
for no reason.
There's a little pro tip for you.
That's so funny. I didn't know any of this. I didn't know how this worked.
Well, here you go.
Now I know.
Kathleen's learning.
Now I know.
Along with all of you guys.
That's right.
But this is something like, please don't just order a set of dilators on Amazon. Work with a pelvic floor physical therapist for dilator work because they will give you specific instructions and how to do it. But I think a question that often comes up is like, is there something morally wrong with dilators? No, no, there's not. Yeah. You are doing this for a therapeutic means. Now you should never use a dilator to bring yourself to orgasm. No. That's not what you're doing. What you're doing, I mean, you're doing the same thing as picking up a set of weights and doing some, I don't know, like Polyf presses weight or something, training. Right? Like you're exercising. It's almost more like you're like doing yoga or something. You're stretching.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, there's nothing morally illicit about using dilators. Now it might feel uncomfortable to you. It might feel kind of weird. But yeah, that's a big recommendation. The other thing with dilators too, there's a couple of different options. There's hard plastic ones and then there's silicone ones. Get the silicone ones because like your husband's penis is not hard plastic. It acts more like silicone does because it's like flesh, it's human body, right?
Yeah. There's a little give there.
Yeah. There's some give, right? So like
there's some give.
Yeah. I don't, the hard plastic one. Yeah. Go silicone. Anyway.
That's funny. There's your
dilator information. But again, like please work with a pelvic floor physical therapist for this. And this is something if you're like, I think I have vaginismus. What the heck do I do? You would go to your OBGYN, your gynecologist and say, hey, I have pain with penetration. Can I please have a referral to a pelvic floor physical therapist? And it's as easy as that. You don't, I mean, yeah, this can be embarrassing. This can be confusing. But just use simple language. Your gynecologist might ask some additional questions. How long has this been going on? Blah, blah, blah. Right. And potentially your gynecologist, like she herself may have a treatment plan for you. Or your office might have a pelvic floor physical therapist in it. Like that would be cool. So just don't be afraid to ask for help when it comes to vaginismus, but then don't discount the fact that vaginismus has a mental component to it. So please, Continue listening to things like this podcast. The conversations that we have really help with these kind of difficulties with sex. It might even be something that's so ingrained that you don't even realize that it is, a mental block with sex. Some of the books that I recommend, like Holy Sex really worked for us because it fostered conversation between my husband and I.
That's a great book.
It's a great book. Yeah.
We love that book.
But it's not that like the book is magical or something. It's this conversation piece that is huge. So yeah. And just conversation between you and your spouse, can be a big, big thing.
Yeah.
And I think something else that's really important is, if you are having pain with sex, don't just continue on and just say, oh, this is my burden. Stop immediately, and tell your husband, like, I can't do this. This hurts. Right. Your husband owes you that as your spouse, to not put you in a place of pain.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Also, it's probably not that awesome for him if it's hurting you. So he should, it's a mutual thing here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's all really good information though. I mean, as one who did not experience a ton of pain, who experienced more discomfort and occasionally does, depending on where I am in my cycle, there could still be some discomfort, or irritation or something, but, that's all super helpful.
Yeah. But I think too, just remembering that like adequate foreplay is necessary. Because like, while technically speaking, I don't have vaginismus. Right. If I am not fully aroused, I could absolutely still have pain with penetration because simply of just not spending enough time in foreplay. So that's really important.
And another, like a visual that can be provided for the importance of foreplay, right? Like, I forget where I learned this, but if you visualize the penis, right? Like, and how it functions, right? It, as a man is aroused, it becomes erect. It gets a little longer, in the same way, a woman's vaginal canal actually does that in reverse. Right. So we were talking about, the vaginal canal actually elongates as a woman becomes aroused, and actually lifts the cervix a little bit. So we were talking about,
dyspareunia,
that type. Yeah, exactly. That pain where it feels like hitting the cervix. If you feel that pain, say, okay, not yet. Like, let's work on this a little bit longer. Right. Like if there's some hitting of the cervix that's causing pain, work a little longer at foreplay, because as you become more aroused, that your vaginal canal will lengthen a little bit, lift that cervix a little bit, and then, kind of help to solve that problem just naturally.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I think that's a great transition into dyspareunia, which, like, honestly, as far as I can tell, the research that I've done, like, it's pretty much dyspareunia is mainly the cervix issue. It's bumping up against the cervix, which can feel very, very uncomfortable. And it can feel like a sharp pain. It can also just sort of be like a discomfort, sick to your stomach feeling. Yeah. It's different for every woman. So one is, adequate foreplay, making sure that vaginal canal had enough time to really elongate, so that there is space and room for the penis. Yeah. But something else that can really help with dyspareunia, especially as you're trying to navigate it, is positions where the woman is on top, because you can control the depth of penetration. And so if you feel that sharp pain with the penis touching the cervix, you can literally lift off slightly, and just control that level of penetration. And so that can be very helpful. I mean, other positions too, you do have control of the depth of penetration, because you can literally use your hands to move his hips or something. Right. Right. Up and down. And so just I think sometimes just that knowledge, of recognizing that like dyspareunia typically is going to be a problem of depth of penetration. And so just recognizing like, just control that depth a little bit, you know, bring him out, or if you're in a top position, like bring yourself up.
Yeah.
That can be hugely, hugely helpful for that.
Yeah. I love it.
I think it's important. We didn't caveat this at the beginning of the episode. We are not pelvic floor physical therapists. We are not medical providers. We cannot, we
which
cannot
is why,
diagnose you.
Which is why Ellen has said, go work with one.
So please, if
not come find us.
You know, I think this episode is kind of like, here's a little bit of the experience that we've personally had with pain and how we've navigated it. If you think that you are experiencing pain, pelvic floor physical therapy, or, you know, your gynecologist who would most likely, refer you out to a pelvic floor physical therapist, that please do yourself and your husband a favor.
Yes.
And go and take care of it. And something too, and I'm sure that there's someone listening that's like, oh my gosh, I think I've had pain the entire time that I've been married to my husband, and we've been married for 20 years. How do I even broach this subject? It's been so long. I mean, it's kind of like a Band-Aid. You need, for your own sake, for your own health, you need to broach this subject as soon as you can. I recommend outside of the context of sex, not within the act. I mean, that's kind of a lot to take in. And please set an appointment with your gynecologist, or, you know, do a quick Google search of pelvic floor physical therapists in your area, and find one. There's also, I will also link, a pelvic floor physical therapist. It's a pair of, or one of them is anyway, their company is called Tighten Your Tinkler, which I love.
That's right.
But they also, they say Tighten Your Tinkler, but it's kind of both sides, can help, because it's all about just the health of your pelvic floor. And they've got a great signature program that is awesome. I highly recommend it. I also think I have like a coupon code for $50 off. So I will put that in the show notes.
I think you do as well.
I think I do.
You sent it to me before.
I did. Yeah. So I'll find that coupon code, and put that in the show notes. I have no idea what it is. And you know, so that also could be a route if you're like just in an area where you don't see any pelvic floor physical therapists, or something like that, where you're just terrified of going in to see a doctor, because you don't ever have to talk to these people. Like, it's all pre-recorded signature course. So
love it.
Awesome.
Love it.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say on pain.
Thanks so much for listening. If you are not already following us on Instagram, be sure to check us out at Charting Toward Intimacy. And if you listen to podcasts on a platform that gives you the option to rate or review, we'd love for you to do that, because it helps us spread the word about the podcast. If you ever have questions, comments, or episode topic ideas, please reach out to us. We love to hear from you. You can reach out on Instagram or send us an email. Our email is in the show notes. Until next time.